I don't believe Donald Trump, and I also think as an Israeli, you should pause before using the phrase terror regime, since you live in a country that just murdered thousands of children in Gaza. We should all pull back a little bit on the rhetoric I'm not defending Iran, but I'm just saying
even the fact
terror
that you want
regime,
me
it's a little hard to hear that from an Israeli right now, I have to say.
Really, it was music to my ears when I learned that Tucker Carlson went on Israel's Channel 13 to do an interview. I kind of love it when Tucker does these, like, he does these little side quests occasionally. Like, he'll do it. He's like got a real, he's got like a real hate boner for like Germany at the moment. So he says like, all right, I'm going to look through my messages and find the most recent German journalist that asked me for an interview. And then he does the interview with them and he just like shits on the German government for an hour and a half. Right. I kind of love these sorts of side quests that Tucker does. Right. And they're always hilarious, but none could have been more hilarious and factual and poignant and just guns blazing than his 50-minute conversation. You should all check out the full conversation. You can find it on Twitter that he did with Israel's Channel 13 and some unfortunate schmuck that got tasked with interviewing him. So let's take a look at some of my favorite clips here from the conversation.
The United States would cave in to Iran terror regime that controls now also the Hormuz passway and the terror ring that it created in the...
Couldn't they have at least like found some Israeli journalist that speaks a little bit of English? Maybe that's why they chose this guy, because all the ones that speak somewhat fluent English, they're like, they understand Tucker's power and they're too scared to do this, right? Maybe, and this guy just like, he doesn't understand the English language. So he's like, why should I care? It's almost like it really is to our French audience, kind of similar. It's like a French accent, almost the way Hamas, it's like a more disgusting French accent. Why should I be afraid of Tucker? Hamas is our true enemy.
Middle East, maybe it would be even worse for any citizens in the world, not only in Israel, but also in the United States. And this is exactly what Donald Trump said. He said that the United States would have been in danger. So you don't believe Donald Trump?
I don't believe Donald Trump, and I also think as an Israeli, you should pause before using the phrase terror regime, since you live in a country that just murdered thousands of children in Gaza. We should all pull back a little bit on the rhetoric I'm not defending Iran, but I'm just saying
even the fact
terror
that you want
regime,
me
it's a little hard to hear that from an Israeli right now, I have to say.
That you want me to make an equation between democratic government that's acting, maybe not to your taste, but from self-defense, to a terror regime in Iran that is terrorizing its own citizens, that hanging people, gay people from cranes, with Islamic extremist Sharia, to a democratic country that's abide by international law of self-defense. It's ridiculous. Do you think that Israel and Iran is on the same equation? Really?
I don't think Israel and Iran are the same.
That's what it's saying.
By many measures, they're not.
Exactly why.
Tucker made the classic mistake. He forgot he was speaking to God's chosen people, and he was trying to compare, the government of Iran. Yes, it's different, but sovereign. He totally forgot to say that. Yes, sorry, sir, you are God's chosen people.
I can totally
this is
happy
why
to
people
tell you what I'm
saying
saying, which is
that you're targeting only Israel, and by that
well, of course, I'm not targeting anybody. I don't have a military. I'm a podcaster, so I don't target people. What I'm saying is true, which is Iran's behavior, the government of Iran's behavior, is in some cases disgusting to me and immoral. But the behavior of the Israeli government in Gaza is disgusting and immoral. And of course, Israel's not a democracy in any sense. There are millions of people who live under Israeli control who cannot vote, right? And so if the West Bank, Judea and Samaria and Gaza, or whatever we're calling these places, which Israel has controlled since 1967, have people living in them who have no control over the government that controls their lives, which is true. It's not a democracy. So let's just drop the talking points. I agree with you on self-defense. I don't think killing children is self-defense. It never will be. And no amount of recounting the legitimate atrocities of October 7th will ever get me to accept this behavior from the Israeli government, from the U.S. government, from the Iranian government, or any government. It's always wrong. And Israel doesn't like to acknowledge the existence of universal principles that apply to everyone equally. That's why they're principles, not preferences. And Israel, again, which I've always liked as a country, is a lot of civilized, decent people living there to this day, has to acknowledge that principles are universal.
Bro, I'm just going to say it. I really like Tucker, but it's like, I don't know if this is like a stylistic choice or something to like, you know, try to be, you know, me. What do you think I would say if I was on Israeli TV? By the way, Israel Channel 13 would love to come on, and talk and have a fruitful conversation. I think that'd be so fun, right? You're not going to hear me say, I don't know if it's like a rhetorical device that he tries to use where he's like, oh, you know, well, like, you're not all, you know, your government, your country, it's, you know, it's like, bruh, just say what needs to be said. Say what needs to be said. Like Dan Bilzerian goes out on this TV show like he ain't gonna be saying that. He's gonna be saying stuff that you're not allowed to say on YouTube, you know.
Universal. They apply to everyone, even you, even me. My government, your government, every government. But you won't acknowledge that. It's always like, oh, Iran's bad. Yeah, Iran's bad. But your behavior is bad too.
Again, the rhetorical device is like, we're going to say Iran's bad, but Israel's bad. How about you can say Iran is bad? Okay, I don't care about that. But it's up for Iranians to like decide how to fix the problems if they see them as problems. Even you say there's problems. I think anyone would admit that every country has problems, right? But if the Iranians see it as oh so bad or, you know, disgusting or problematic, then it's up to them to fix it. It's not up to Israel. It's not up to the United States. And Tucker has also said this stuff a million times before. I'm just saying, it's like this needs to be drilled into the head of these propagandists is what they are. I mean, they're just propagandists for genocide. This whole conflict with Iran post-October 7th started because Israel decided one day, just for funsies, they would bomb the Iranian embassy in Damascus, Syria, and they killed a bunch of people, like random consulate staff they killed in that attack. So, you know, this is, we can't compare these things. We cannot compare these things. We cannot compare what Israel has done over the last several decades, over the last few years, over the last few days or hours or minutes or seconds to what Iran is doing. It is just not something that can be compared, okay, in any sort of like meaningful way. You can't compare these governments. You have one government that is a government of virtue and self-defense and sovereignty, to put it in a very, very succinct manner. And you have another government that is a lie built on false pretenses that is only upholding the lie by way of bombing anyone and everyone within a certain, you know, certain mile radius of their direction, right? And they would drop a nuclear bomb on all of them if they weren't in such close quarters with their neighbors that they call enemies. Anyways, let's move on to the next clip here. Did we watch this one?
That's why I'm disgusted by the way that Israel treats Arabs like animals or subhumans. I oppose that. That is immoral. I oppose attacks on Jews as Jews. That is disgusting. It is immoral. These are universal principles from which I have never wavered and never will, because I believe them, because I'm a Christian. I wish Israel the best of luck. I don't think the United States owes Israel anything. I don't think the United States should give Israel anything. I think we should stop all aid to Israel, all special deals for Israel tomorrow. That's why I'm disgusted by the way that
All right, we got two more here. That was a short one.
Labeled Israel as committing genocide? You said that.
Ethnic cleansing. Israel's trying to take the people who live there and move them out.
Genocide. You said about Israel,
genocide, killing,
about the people,
killing,
about
killing
the state of the Jews. You said we are committing genocide.
Israel has murdered all these children, thousands of children in Gaza. But the real criminal is me, because I describe that as genocide. Okay, it's not it's killing innocents. It's wrong. You can call it genocide or ethnic cleansing.
So you're not calling
call
it
it a crime, a sin, an atrocity. I don't really care. What I'm saying is murdering children is wrong. You're more upset by how I describe the murder of children than you are at the murder of children, which says a lot.
Labeled Israel as committing
True.
regime that controls now also the Hormuz pathway and the terror ring that it created in the Middle East. Maybe it would be even worse for any citizens in the world, not only in Israel, but also in the United States. And this is exactly what Donald Trump said. He said that the United States would have been in danger. So you don't believe Donald Trump?
I don't believe Donald Trump, and I also think as an Israeli, you should pause before using the phrase terror regime, since you live in a country.
Wait, we already watched that one. Anyways, that was pretty much it from the interview I wanted to watch.
Iran.
That was pretty much it. You know, it's needless to say, going into the Lions' Den is not a fun game unless, you have nothing to lose. And I've got nothing to lose, so I'll repeat again. I'd love to go on Israel Channel 13. It's not going to be as nice as your conversation with Tucker. I'm far less nice. And it would be a lot of fun. It would be a lot of fun. And what's so incredible to me now is like, there was a time when it's really incredible to think about how far we've come. There was a time when like Tucker was like not talking about the Gaza genocide. You remember that, right? Now we've got Tucker going on Israel Channel 13, humiliating them to their, eviscerating them. Not to, I think, like the highest level possible, but he's saying a lot, right? And I think that's incredible. And he's also, according to the markets, he's also a presidential, not hopeful. He hasn't declared anything, but he's, he could be a front runner if he declared his intention to run for the presidency of the United States. That is an incredible shifting of the Overton window, as they say, that we have seen over the last few years. And I think that is something that should not be forgotten. It should not be taken lightly. This is a major, major development in the political consensus that we have seen against Israeli terrorism, right? Against Israeli terrorism over the last few years. The majority of Americans now oppose Israel, do not sympathize with what they're doing, do not sympathize with giving them any sort of aid or any sort of arms, anything like that. We have had a tidal shift in public sentiment towards Israel. And it's really incredible. No one's scared anymore either. No one is scared. People just say, I'll take that one on the chin if I suffer for speaking out against this. Because what I suffer is peanuts compared to what those in Gaza, Iran, Lebanon, Yemen are suffering, right? Iraq, it's peanuts. Tucker knows this. Thomas Massey knows this. Marjorie Taylor Greene knows this. Candace knows this. It's really incredible, I remember one time early on when Tucker was not saying much about Israel, and someone who I know told me that they had they were at an event together, and they said, Tucker came up to me, Jackson, and said this, that, and the third about how much he appreciated what I was posting about and stuff. And I was just like shocked. I almost like didn't believe it. I'm like, really? Really? Because you're so radical. Like you're radical like me. And he said that. But now, we can all see it. We can all see it. Fully woken up and not scared at all about the repercussions. We need more of that. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.